Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Juergen Steinmetz, joining you from eTurbo News in Honolulu, Hawaii. And with me is Dr. Peter Tarlow. As always, he's in College Station in Texas. It seems to be a wonderful sunny day here in Hawaii. A lot of people at the beach. How's everything in College Station, Peter?
Well, other than the fact we don't have a beach, we're replicating Hawaii because it's a beautiful day. It's in the low 70s or 20s in Celsius, and it is a blue sky and a gentle wind. So it's a really beautiful day here.
Perfect. And getting right into the news, maybe before we getting into the news, let's put it this way. I wanted to everyone alert, we have a new website at eturbonews.com. So a lot of things have changed, and we're trying to make it more efficient for you, the reader, and the listener. So any feedback you have, you're welcome. It's your website as much as ours because we're doing it for you. Give us your feedback. And one of the major changes you see now is that our newsletter no longer has the need to click through to our website to read the feature story. So you have everything right on the newsletter, makes it a lot more convenient. And when you go to the website, we changed the dark blue background into a white background. We've been told people like the white better. It's easier to read. It looks less cluttered. So we've done this. And then we're also pointing out our various language editions. And after actually I made this more prominent, we have an enormous increase I see in foreign languages because you can read us in almost 100 languages and just click on it and you have your own edition, what is also indexed individually by Google in your own language, and you can actually search our content in your own language. And so just take a look in our breaking news show. It's going to be now visible on every page. And you also, the last 5 breaking news shows we have is visible on every page on the sidebar. So that means if you forgot to see us live, just go back and you can see us on the website for a while. And then, of course, we're after this on YouTube and all our various channels. But we have some breaking news in Mexico. Peter, you can fill us in. You have the information on it.
It's really been very tragic. As you all might know, day before yesterday, the Mexicans arrested the son of El Chapo, who's the largest cartel drug dealer in Mexico. He's in prison in the United States, not his son, the El Chapo. And the son was arrested. And so the cartels took vengeance on Mexico, especially in the state of Sinaloa, in the city of Culiacan. They attacked the airport and actually went through the terminal to planes and attacked people on the planes. No planes were brought down, but there was tremendous problem. To the best of my knowledge, at the moment, there is no, the airport is still closed. Now, what's really important about this is not just that a cartel attacked an airport, or that it really hurts the tourism industry of Mexico tremendously and has gotten international coverage around the world. Somebody today wrote to me from Africa asking me about it. And when people in Africa are writing about the situation in Mexico, you know it's gotten worldwide coverage. It got big coverage in the BBC and in news outlets in France, etc. But this is a threat to tourism as a general pattern. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that someone's gone through a terminal and attacked people on an airplane. And so this is especially worrisome to some of the countries in Latin America who also have cartel problems. But, you know, this is something that could now be replicated for other reasons. It could be an attack by the Russians against Ukrainians or Germans or whomever they want to attack. And tourism needs desperately to have the ability for people to travel peacefully. And if you begin to really attack the airline industry, this could have a lot of repercussions. To add to that, lots is going on also in Peru. As you are sure aware of the fact, Peru had a coup d'etat about, well, originally it wasn't a coup d'etat. They arrested the president and put in the vice president. So it was kind of a legal coup d'etat, I guess you might say, or something like that. I believe they've had 6 presidents now in 5 years, but this one set off all sorts of riots across Peru, especially in southern Peru and against the tourism industry. And you had a lot of people in Machu Picchu who couldn't get out. It's very hard. They stopped all the food trucks, so restaurants started closing because there wasn't food. And a number of countries, including the United States, some of the European countries, Israel, had to send in planes to evacuate the tourists. So again, this is really, of course, Machu Picchu and the whole Cusco area is the height of Peruvian tourism. So again, what we're seeing is, in one case, it was political violence. In one case, it was criminal violence in Mexico. But in both cases, violence has become a real threat to many of the countries in Latin America. And they're just getting their feet on the ground. And of course, tourism is big business in Latin America. And if they lose the tourism industry, they have a lot of problems. So it's really important. I'll be in Mexico in a few weeks. The importance of really getting a handle on what's going on in Mexico. And, the problem is, even if it took place in the state of Sinaloa, the media doesn't report it that way. If you look at the headlines on the BBC or on some of the American media, it just says major violence in Mexico. So the visitor usually just sees the headline. And if the headline paints the whole country that way, that puts the country really into a very bad situation. So this 2023 did not begin with a very good start in Latin America. It actually began with some other problems. As you know, that there was an attack also on a prison in northern Mexico. That's not international news per se, but what made it international news is the cartels use tanks to attack the prison. And that means they're becoming more and more like regular military. So they're no longer just a bunch of guys, robbing a bank with some pistols. We're talking about tanks. And if you use a tank in one place, you can use a tank in another place. It's a real threat to the stability of Mexico, and definitely a threat to the stability of Mexican tourism. So that's a really big deal that has to be looked at.
Yeah, and Peter, if you go back to Mexico, Mexico had these issues in various states, right? Even as in Cancun, what is most populated with tourism, drug cartels are fighting in Tijuana. It becomes really a nationwide security issue, doesn't it?
It does. And if Mexico loses its tourism in a place like Cancun, Cancun can easily become like Acapulco, which was a top-rate tourism spot, and is now a third-rate or fourth-rate tourism spot. So the Mexicans have to be really careful, because this is a very important moment for Mexico, and what happens in Mexico often impacts all of Latin America. Remember that Latin America basically has two countries that, other than Brazil, but it's Spanish-speaking Latin America, have two countries that dominate it. That's Argentina and Brazil. Those are Buenos Aires and Mexico City, the two great cities of Latin America. And if those places have troubles, they're going to have a lot of issues. Of course, added to this, you have the problem in Brazil. We have had a peaceful change of government, with President Lula now taking over, but we don't know exactly where that's going to go, and there are a lot of people who don't trust him. So, and of course, that's a third powerhouse of all of Latin America. So if you have problems in Argentina, in Brazil, and in Mexico, you're going to have a lot of problems. And then on a positive note, there is developing what's called the Andean states. And Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia are planning on working together to create a single marketing entity when it comes to tourism. So that could be really great. But if they're not able to get a handle on the security situation, then it will hurt all four countries instead of just one country. So there's the positive that there'll be joint marketing, and they plan to make it very easy for visitors to go between those four countries. A little bit like the European Union, but on a less sophisticated manner. On the other hand, you can have the problem that you have in the Caribbean when they market together, and when one country has a problem and the media says problems in the Caribbean, it hurts all of them. So it's going to be two sides to it, and it'll be interesting to see if the governments are smart enough to turn a negative into a positive and see this as an opportunity rather than as a danger.
Yeah, and I mean the security is the in and out for any tourism destination. Without security, there is no tourism because people don't want to travel to a destination. And Americans, to be fair, are known for kind of a black and white type mindset. They either one way, it's either secure or not secure. There's no middle ground. Other nations may think, there's a middle ground. You can kind of just
Navigate
through it. Yeah.
So, no, I will tell you, many of the Europeans panic very quickly. So the Europeans are somewhat on the same level of the mindset and flee, especially the British flee very quickly when they think there's a problem. Speaking of Europeans, another thing, and you've just been there, is the whole issue of Croatia becoming now a full part of the EU and switching its money to the euro. And you might want
that's definitely it's a good move. It makes travel easier. As you know, I just got back from Croatia and I rented a car and I went to Slovenia, I went to Italy, I went to Bosnia Herzegovina and to Montenegro. So I crossed a lot of borders in and out Croatia. And if you wanted to go to Slovenia, what is a fellow EU country, there are long lines. So you have to show your passport, you have to clear immigration. They're asking a lot of questions. They wanted to see your car papers. And now, after January 1st, you just drive through like you do from Austria to Germany or from Switzerland to Italy. It'll become a lot easier. Also, Croatia had its issue in able to facilitate visas because Croatia, as a little bit smaller country compared to maybe the UK or France or Germany, didn't have that many embassies around the world. So in order to get a visa from Croatia, it was different than the Schengen visa you needed for the European Union. Americans don't need this visa, but many other nationalities in the world need this visa. So that's becoming easier because now if you have a Schengen visa, that means a visa from any EU country within the Schengen area. And the Schengen area is the area where you can travel without border checks, what is most of the EU now. So your visa from Italy is good to go to Croatia. Your visa from Holland is good to Croatia. And a Croatian visa is good to come into Germany. So that is all getting closer together. It's good for the economy. And then, of course, the currency being the same, making all these extra fees for exchanging money, all this banking business you have to do at the border, obsolete. You don't need to do that anymore. Anyone who still has a little bit of Croatian money like I do here, not much, talking about a few dollars, I will definitely hold on to it because it's going to become probably worthwhile after a few years because no one has that money. I still have some German marks from the 70s and they're now worth a lot more than the marks printed on it. So hold on to whatever Croatian money you had, I can say.
Well, I have some Croatian money also. And so I am going to hold on to it. Unfortunately, one of the negative parts about this is for the Croatians themselves. And that is usually when you switch from a local currency to the euro, most stores round up. And so things become much more expensive. I know that in Spain and in Portugal, when they moved to the euro, things became 16 to 18% more expensive. And of course, in the world, we're in a period of inflation. So if there's both more expensive because of the currency change, and so a negative thing about the currency, which is good, it won't hurt tourists, but it will hurt the local people, is that often when they switch from a local currency to the euro, the store owners round everything up rather than everything down. So, for example, in Spain and Portugal, they rounded everything up by 16%. So everything became 16% more expensive overnight. And of course, the other side of that is that you also have inflation. Now, that won't hurt the tourists. You're right about that, because from a visitor perspective, it means you don't have to change money. And, I just have to change money if I'm going to Europe, in France or Portugal or Spain, and I can use the same money in Croatia now. So that's great. But it will be more expensive for the Croatians initially until things balance themselves out.
Yeah, not only for the Croatians. I remember the time when I lived in Germany in the 70s, uh, and then later on when the mark was replaced with the euro. You're right, everything became tremendously more expensive, not only rounding up, everything seemed to be going up. So before, the mark was about double. So when you have 2 marks was about €1 roughly. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden, everything what costs 2 marks now is €2. So people were suffering over
yeah.
time. This was within a year or two. It's like having 100% inflation on many issues.
So that's a local issue. Once, from the tourist perspective, that won't hurt us, but it will hurt the local population at first. Now, eventually, that will balance itself out. But it'll be a challenge. Of course, for other Europeans, it'll make life very easy because if they want to visit Croatia, which is an incredibly beautiful country, they'll be able to drive there without having to change money, and that would be great for them.
Yeah, and there's a unique situation in Croatia. If you go into Montenegro, what is the borders between Montenegro and the very south part by Dubrovnik, you don't need to change money because Montenegro always has been adopting the euro, and it's actually the only country not in the European Union using euro. Quite a
Mhm.
unique situation, but you still have borders because Montenegro is not part of the European Union. And I understand actually all the talks of integrating Montenegro just suddenly stopped. This happened about 2 weeks ago. And
Mm.
we don't know exactly the reason. From what I understand from inside information, is one of the reasons is that the government in Montenegro has been in power now for 20, 30 years, for a long time. And there are some doubts in the European Union how transparent
Yeah, yeah,
governmental system is in that country.
yeah.
So all the talks are on hold, but they're using the euro, but you still need a passport. So the
Yeah, so
situation
it's
is
somewhat,
becoming complicated.
yeah, it's very similar to Panama and Ecuador. We both use the dollar as their currency, but you need a passport. So an American, when you get to Panama, uses dollars as if you're in the United States, but you're in a foreign country and you need a passport to go. So
And
there's,
it's not only, I mean, there are many countries in the world, like Zimbabwe, for example, where the US dollar is legal currency. So everything is in US dollars because when they had their own currency, they had an inflation rate. So in the morning, when you go shopping for bread, in the afternoon, you couldn't afford it anymore. So it was, so they all turned into the US dollar as a last ditch rescue attempt, I guess.
well, let's hope that we don't have so much inflation in the United States that we have to switch to the euro or something. Uh, but there's a lot of problems in this because Europeans are suffering tremendously because of the rise in the cost of heat. As you know, that many European countries are starting to open up coal mines again, which is a real issue on greening and green energy, where they're going backwards. And in some places in the United States now, the cost of heat has gone up by tremendous amount, 60, 70% in 1 month. So that really hurts people and their ability to travel because if you're spending all your discretionary money, it's not discretionary on heat, you don't have discretionary money to be able to travel, on planes and other issues. So that's going to be the tourism industry has some real challenges and it has to look at them very seriously.
Yeah, no, 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 absolutely. And other than that, this year is finished. For some, it's Merry Christmas today, because there's Orthodox Christmas in
Oh, that's
Russia and in Ukraine. And today, actually, the Russian President Putin wanted to have a 30
right.
uh,
3 hours.
hour no attack, and apparently that turned out to be a hoax. From what I understand, Russia wanted to prepare, and they are positioning a little bit in creating this hope for the people. So let's hope this would actually turn into a real peace agreement. It's Christmas time. It's a for this part of the world, and that's an important time for peace, I would say.
Well, let's hope so. I think you know that our friend who lives in Odessa, Ivan, and I are writing a book about what the tourism industry has suffered during the Ukraine, and we hopefully will get that book done during 2023. so it'll be out for 2024. I'm hoping then it will be a history book and not a current events book, but we'll have to see. Only God knows if the war will still be going on in 2024. Let's hope not.
Well, yes, and I agree with you. Well, it's the beginning of the year, January 6th
Right.
today, weekend coming up. And if you're watching us now, we're going to repeat our session. We're trying to get a little bit more structure into what we're doing, because so far it was we really weren't able to do it every day. So what I think Peter and I committed, we're going to do this at least once a week.
Right.
We have our breaking news show, but then also it is breaking news. When there is breaking news, we're going to have it more often. We have other people as guests. So if you wanted to be a guest in our show, just go to breakingnewsshow.com and click on the contact information and let us know what you like to talk about. Maybe we invite you to be part of it. And for everyone in Russia and Ukraine and Greece, Merry Christmas. For everyone else, you have a nice weekend, and let's make this a good year. This was our first edition in 2023. So again, one more last time, Happy New Year to everyone. And Peter, Shabbat Shalom, and we hope to see you again soon.
I'll still speak to you soon, and have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Merry Christmas to those celebrating Christmas today. Happy New Year. And to those still switching over to, hopefully you've gotten over whatever hangover you've had. Put a smile on your face, and let's hope that 2023 is a better year than 2022.
Yeah, and if you write checks, make sure it's 23. Otherwise, you're sending bad checks now, because they're good for 1 year only.
That's right. Okay. Bye-bye.